Hey guys, this is CSDX, but you can call me Sean, and this game kind of had me actually be burnt out by the end of it. Or maybe that was depression, actually, I don't know. Not really because they're bad, mind you. Honestly, these are very good games in their own right. It's just that I have played them so many times that it can kinda get a little dull and wanting something more in a way. But also based on the fact that like the wireless services for 3DS and Wii U are being shut down sooner, and I wanted to try and get this video up before then. And also a former co-worker was kind of poking fun at me about the games being bad, so I'm doing this out of spite! God, it's been almost 10.5 years since X and Y came out. Pokemon's mainline entries had primarily been sprite games due to being made for the weaker handheld hardware such as the Game Boy and Game Boy Advance. Sure, we had 3D titles before in Pokemon Stadium, but never anything that were a full-fledged RPG that was mainline. It does pain me to say in that sense that Colosseum and XD Gale of Darkness don't count, as I've seen how great they are and how they should be remastered or even remade, despite the fact that they'd probably be priced at $60 each because Nintendo is not your friend. Starting with the DS, we did kinda get 3D in Gen 4, but it was more so 2D sprites in a sort of 3D overworld, but not like 2.5D games like Klonoa, as it was still always a top-down perspective. We got close with Gen 5, where one comment I had on a recent video argued that Black and White and Black 2 and White 2 could count as the first HD 2D games, and honestly, I can see it, because these games are gorgeous in that regard. Then, at long last, we got the first official main series 3D entries in Pokemon X and Y. People don't seem to like this one much anymore, or even at all. Sure, there are some that either grew up loving it or hated it, but came around to thinking it wasn't as bad as they remembered. And then there's me, whose autism gave me a more childish mindset for years, which may be why I liked X and Y from the start. But now with a much older mindset, especially thanks to a mental growth spurt of sort that I had in like 2015, 2016-ish, seriously, I know people that can vouch for me on the fact that I was like 20 or 21 years old, but I had the mental age of 6, if not 12. I've opted to come back to these games for the, 13th time, I guess. And thus I can at least show that these games are not as bad as people make them out to be. A fletchling wakes you up by jamming their beak into your head. That already makes this a 10 out of 10. You played Pokemon before? Then you know how the gameplay generally goes, with it being a turn-based RPG where you use monsters you've tamed to battle other people, collect gym badges, so on and so forth. As for what they do different, there's actually quite a few things aside from the 3D visuals and such. First off, just to get this out of the way, they took the EXP share and turned it into a key item, finally bringing in a traditional and common-sense RPG staple in party-wide EXP, and it is incredibly clear that people were using it as they eventually made it permanent. Surely the minority of people that didn't like it won't be ear-bleedingly loud about that! The interesting thing is that the game is very clearly designed around using the EXP share, and I only realized this because I've tried skipping some battles because of burnout and found myself being roughly the same level as the freaking champion's strongest Pokemon, which is level 68. I beat this in roughly 22 hours. Imagine how long it would have taken had I not used the EXP share. Suddenly I feel even worse about this video taking at least 6 months to get out. Though I also used rare candies via a save mod to speed things up, which, yeah, I'm sorry about that, but it suggests that if I didn't use it and kept skipping battles, I'd end up struggling more. So I'd say it's a neat incentive to keep battling trainers. You can also sit in benches and sometimes the angle will change to show off the 3D. They were really proud of this, I like that. They also decided to make things a bit harder for maneuvering. Okay, not really, but see, despite it being 3D, it's still kinda grid-based, save for when you move around with the bike, or in these games, freaking rollerblades! You even get to learn sick tricks, including an ultimate trick that honestly just looks so damn awesome, but the drawback is that it's locked to the circle pad, and if you want to just run instead, you have to use the D-pad. It's not as bad as with Super Mario 64 DS's situation, which, honestly, I feel like it isn't even that bad to begin with, but it still sucks. Thankfully, once you get the dowsing machine, you can use it and then be able to run just fine, which I think is a fine compromise. There's also a picture-taking mechanic that I freaking adore. I always love taking these pictures, usually at night, because they come out more pretty then, and then tipping Phil the photo guy $1,000 as a thank you. By the way, him complimenting me here, he only does it when you tip him. Yeah, in an interestingly odd decision, you can tip certain people, such as the waiting staff in cafes and such. It doesn't really do much per se, but it feels good to help people, you know? These games also introduced Mega Evolutions, which is by far the best battle gimmick we had since these battle gimmicks started, which funnily enough was kind of these games, as they breathed new life into certain Pokemon of old and gave them a means to be worth using in your party when you otherwise wouldn't, such as Kangaskhan, Pinsir, and Houndoom, although Houndoom, now that I think about it, is pretty great without a Mega Evolution, but also Pokemon that don't really need it, such as Venusaur, Charizard, Blastoise, Gyarados, Charizard but bad freaking ass, Mewtwo, Tyranitar, Mewtwo, Dragon Ball Frieza, Gardevoir, Aggron, not Flygon, not Milotic, Garchomp, freaking Garchomp got a Mega Evolution, and thank God we did not have to deal with it in BDSP. That champion battle was already hard enough, to be honest. I couldn't even one-shot it with an Ice Beam with my BB Barrel like I did in freaking Platinum, Platinum, because it had a freaking berry that made it not super effective. Screw you! Despite the boost mostly going towards Pokemon that really didn't need it, it was still a very fun mechanic. You give a Pokemon an appropriate Mega Stone, unless it's Rayquaza, but that's for Oras, whatever. And you can Mega Evolve them once per battle. The evolution is temporary, akin to most Digimon Digivolutions, and there's no real limit or setback when using it. No need to recharge anything like in Gen 9's Terrestrialization gimmick, no locale limitation like with Gen 8's Dynamaxing/Gigantamaxing, and it isn't limited to one move like Gen 7's Z-Moves gimmick. Pain! What does suck about it that has since been rectified in some form with future battle gimmicks is that gym leaders, or really many important trainers, don't really take advantage of this at all. Hell, outside of the last fight you have with the villain leader, I think the only other times you face someone that Mega Evolves their final Pokemon is when you face Gym Leader Korrina for when you first get Mega Evolution, and when you face the frickin' champion. To be fair though, there are only 28 there are 28 of them. There are 28 Mega Evolutions available in this game, which I think includes one that was event only and more so a tease of the Hoenn remakes than anything. And yet they could only really have 2 important trainers use Mega Evolution. What the fuck? Sorry, I meant 3. Somehow I forgot about Korrina immediately after writing this part of the script. Oopsie doopsie. Now, normally I'd save this for a Pokemon Rival retrospective video, which I'm clearly doing such a good job at consistently continuing that side series, but I wanted to talk about the rivals. Yeah, they kinda suck. Well, not all of them, at least in my opinion. See, we got Tierno, whose entire thing is dancing, and trying to get a team of Pokemon more so for dancing rather than battling. Then there's Trevor, who is the smart kid that wants to battle with his Pokedex, but no matter how few Pokemon you see and or catch, you'll always win. I know this because I admittedly modded my save to get the team I wanted, and thus barely battled in the wild and didn't really catch many Pokemon in this playthrough. To be fair though, I don't plan to transfer any of the ones I got into bank and then home, especially since, again, save modding, I'd rather not risk anything, you know? They do show some kind of growth, I guess, near the end of the game where the player inspires them to be stronger, but that's not exactly much, as it happens out of nowhere with no real indication that this was being built up. Then there's Serena/Callum, or Callum, I think it's Callum. I will admit I can't speak for Callum as I've almost never played a Serena, but the most I can say is they exist. Serena also seems to understand the villain's motive. Okay, is anyone hearing that? Like, I know my internet alias used to be Crazy Sean DX, and then I switched it to CSDX because I was worried the word crazy would hurt me in the algorithm, on top of the fact that people were trying to discredit any argument I had by calling me crazy based on the username, which is monumentally stupid and just admits you have no argument either way, but like, people are hearing that too, right? It's not just me. Should I get a straitjacket? Lastly, we have Shauna, who is an absolute ball of sunshine that if anyone ruins her innocence about anything at all, I will find them. Also, there's another reason I chose to play as Callum, which I discovered a while ago. See, in certain conversations Shauna has with you, and even during a fireworks display you both get to witness, it ends up feeling implied that she has a crush on you. Turns out this was entirely intentional on Junichi Masuda's part, as he wanted to implement elements of romance if the player chose to be with Callum, while with Serena we sadly didn't get any gayness with that, as Shauna just wants to be her BFF. And I'm sure someday TPC will pull the trigger and give us LGBT plus representation. All in all, I suppose 1 out of 4 isn't so bad in terms of good rivals, yeah? Pokemon Ami. I'm going with Ami. I mentioned it in the Oras video and I'm mentioning it here. You can feed your Pokemon snacks, pet them, and play games with them. Just like before, I only did the puzzles because that's what was the most fun to me. I also connected online to... Oh, whoops. Forgot Pretendo doesn't support these games at the time of this script's writing. Or at least the recording. I don't know. I still think you should support Pretendo. In fact, you might as well because, like, the wireless services are shutting down, so, you know, There we go. Yeah, this is to show just how many people still play these games in 2024, clearly having fun, but sadly that's never stopped Nintendo before. In fact, I'd argue people having fun made Nintendo want to shut stuff down even harder. I personally prefer the GTS be the one to get shut down instead though. Oh, and I remember to do Super Training this time. To get a Pokemon more EVs, or whatever they're called, I don't know, I don't really competitively play, you shoot soccer balls at balloons in specific areas that call for it. Yes, that's as dumb as it sounds. Not only do you earn EVs or whatever, you can earn items through this and even evolution stones if you do well enough. Unfortunately, I don't think I did a good job showing this because partway through recording, the screen on my new 2DS XL broke. While the capture card still works though, it was rather disorienting trying to see where I gotta tap without being able to immediately look at the touchscreen for it being next to the screen I actually have to look at otherwise. I did try that Snicker Stream option after hearing it better utilize the CPU of the new 3DS XL, but judging by this footage, I think I misread something. And it turns out I did. I downloaded and or installed the wrong file for the NTR CFW streaming method. Yeah, I don't know why it's called NTR, especially with the, let's just say it's an adult genre that only evil people seem to be into. And my god, now I really wish I was doing this from the start. This is a wild improvement from looking at an amateur YouTube video from 2006. This works out well for any possible future plans I may have for 3DS games, especially after Yuzu got sued because they transacted around and found out. I can't say charge around and found out because charge doesn't have, it kind of has a double meaning, you know? Sadly, this still doesn't work with DS games as this program is just not compatible with DS mode. But there is emulation as an option, as well as DS Virtual Console on the Wii U, even though not every game is going to work on there, unfortunately. But just don't expect it to be set up the way I have it set up unless I miraculously manage to get a new 3DS XL with a capture card built in. I'm willing to wait if this stays the option though. And now I can record Super Training properly. And now I can move on with my life. By the way, 3D chugs the frame rate a bit. Well, not all the time, but still, that sucks. Wonder Traits were introduced in this gen too. They also suck. What also sucks are Sky Battles, a neat concept that is only limited to flying type Pokemon and ones with the levitate ability. Literally any Pokemon that is floating in their 3D model. Yeah, this is stupid. I can't battle these guys with a Hawlucha despite it being flying type, but I can use a Duskull even if it has the Frisk ability instead of levitate. Not to mention, a bunch of different moves are unable to be used in these battles, which does make more sense in the context of a Sky Battle, but I have elected that Sky Battles are still absolutely worthless and garbage. Oh hey, fresh water! Don't mind if why are you charging 50% more for this? Wait. This power plant is overrun by the villains and you're using this as an opportunity to make money off of them via price gouging? Alright, I'll talk about it, so please make it stop! So something I've noticed throughout this game is that there's a surprising amount of capitalism criticism in this game. There's a tipping thing I mentioned earlier, because tipping wages are a thing. Don't ever opt to live in America if you want to make a living waiting tables. There's the guy charging extra money for frickin' water I just mentioned, but there's also a slew of other things. For example, the fireworks display earlier, it's only done for us because we got back some rich snob's furfrou, which we only did because we needed the Poke Flute from him to wake up a Snorlax blocking the road, something he can't even try to be nice about when it comes to his friend playing it. The reason I bring this up is because the rich guy lives in a mansion that I guess was related to the former King of Kalos many years prior, or is it a museum? I don't know. And you need to pay $1,000 to get in, where not only does the butler let it slip that the funds might not go towards preserving the mansion, but he also mentions his master goes by the idea that you can never have too much money, and Shauna says angrily in response, "This is how the rich get richer. I told you, Shauna is best girl." Seriously, this guy is straight up scamming people to become rich by charging them to go into a piece of history that he just so happens to live in. This guy's a true Republican politician American. Then there's the villain in Lysander. I hope it's pronounced that way. If I mispronounce it, I apologize. The leader of Team Flare, aka the goofiest looking team in Pokemon since Team Galactic, which is ironic because they also want to commit genocide, just not on a level outside of the space-time continuum. See, Lysander's entire motive is that he's fed up with people sullying the world and outright mentions that people will take and take and take until there's no more to take and refuse to share any of it with anyone. A literal criticism of capitalism, most notably billionaires like Donald Trump, Elon Musk, Vince McMahon, and Jeff Bezos. Wait, why do I not vomit noise for Jeff Bezos? Am I stupid? Oh, there it is, actually. Ugh. This is part of why Serena mentions at one point that she completely gets his motive, but like a logical person, she also agrees that genocide is bad, killing is bad, wishing death on people is bad, death threats are bad, just all of that in general is bad, and if you think it's okay to do any of these, you need to get therapy. I'm not saying this as a joke, I'm saying this as a genuine plea. But the wildest and arguably most hypocritical part of Lysander doing what he's doing, he is charging $5 million per person to actually join Team Flare and thus be saved, or spared rather, from the genocide. You can't make this up! I am genuinely stunned at how much of an allegory to late-stage capitalism and people putting profit above all else that I am finding in this game. But you're all probably wondering, how is Lysander attempting to commit genocide in the first place? Like, not why, we've already gone over that, but how? Well, sit down, young ones. Unless you're already sitting, in which case, continue to be sitting. For I am going to tell you quite the sad tale. A terribly long time ago, there was a man and a Pokemon. He loved that Pokemon very much. A war began. The man's beloved Pokemon took part in the war. Several years passed. He was given a tiny box. The man wanted to bring the Pokemon back, no matter what it took. The man built a machine to give it life. He brought his beloved Pokemon back. The man had suffered too much. His rage still had not subsided. He could not forgive the world that had hurt the Pokemon he loved. He turned the machine into the ultimate weapon. The man became a bringer of destruction that ended the war. The Pokemon that was given life must have known. That the lives of many Pokemon were taken to restore its life. The resurrected Pokemon left the man. Get the key back. It should not be used. Everything will vanish again. Do you want to know unending pain? Like I have? Jesus fucking Christ. Yes, in case it wasn't entirely clear when it cut to him, this 20-foot tall behemoth is the former King of Kalos, AZ. Due to the use of the weapon when it was made to bring the Floette back to life, both Floette and him had become immortal. likely due to some kind of radiation or something. I don't think it's actually explained, I haven't checked. Truth be told, this guy only appears like 4 times at best, but because of the dialogue related to him, he's surprisingly fleshed out and is someone that you can easily feel bad for and hope that things work out for him. Meanwhile, the champion of Kalos is someone that you meet 3 times prior to the credits, one of those times being the battle against her, and I barely even know her. Come to think of it, compared to previous gens, especially like Gen 5, we barely get to know any of the gym leaders in Elite 4. None of them are very involved with the plot, although I would much prefer to never see this demon again, even if any backstory as to why she's trying to turn her body into that of a Pokemon is admittedly very intriguing. As much as I do love X and Y, I'd argue one of its biggest flaws is a lack of proper character development, let alone showing proper character at all outside of a select few people. It's admittedly disappointing to see this is the case, but hopefully the 3rd version— nah, I'm good. Surprisingly, Gen 6 is the only gen to not have a 3rd version or even an enhanced dual release akin to Ultra Sun and Ultra Moon. Everyone was expecting a Pokemon Z because of a legendary known as Zygarde, which has an ability that clearly further relates it to the box legendaries Xerneas and Yveltal, not to mention XYZ, you know, it makes sense. And yet instead, we got Hoenn remakes in 2014, not bad honestly, a mystery dungeon release in 2015, and went right to Gen 7 in 2016. There were leaks and rumors in the sort that suggested Z was planned, and whether or not that was confirmed, as I feel like Digino Gaming suggested that Z was in the works, but that it also wasn't a priority as stated in a later video they did. I personally have a theory about this. That being that due to the Wii U failing and Nintendo opting to cut their losses and make an entirely new console in the Switch, Nintendo ended up having Game Freak work on the next gen so they can meet their odd quota of having 2 gens per console gen, as the Switch was poised for a release in 2017, and I'd argue that they wanted the console out as soon as possible so they can save their losses despite them also making sure the damn thing would work. Now, I did think that Pokemon Z was kind of shoehorned into Gen 7, namely because of the fact that like the battle gimmick in the Gen 7 games are Z moves. Like, you can understand the correlation, right? But as it turns out, I did a quick bit of research, and apparently according to Bulbapedia, the Z is believed to stand for Zenith, which means the high point, as in like being the highest peak that a move can reach in terms of power. I think that's a very neat explanation for it, but that doesn't explain the fact that Zygarde himself is shoehorned into the Gen 7 games as a side quest. I also want to bring attention to this lonely old man, by the way, as it's a moment that I consider super important and meaningful. I let him borrow my Fletchling, and I usually choose Fletchling because birds can rule, and I'd like to think this little guy can make a ton of people happy. And when you come back after beating the champion, the man is nowhere to be found, having left a thank you note and a comment shard. For those with worse media literacy than mine, the man's dead. Thing is, we helped him have a happy final few moments, so even in death, he was likely not just grateful for a long life, but also for the kindness we shared that he was able to experience near his end, and I think that's pretty neat. It's always great to be kind. Team Flare soon sets their plan into motion, though, as they somehow found the legendary Pokemon in the mountains. Why was this not shown in the damn game? Which is also siphoning life from Pokemon tied to stone somewhere, which is especially fucked up. You have the option to stop it, but go figure, the weapon is unleashed regardless of which button you choose. This guy is a capital D dirtbag. However, the legendary Pokemon eventually awakens, and we get one of the best battle tracks in Pokemon history. Quick ball, go. Oh no. I actually have to try now. After catching Yveltal, you can battle Lysander and his odd contraption he's wearing. It's never explained what that was for, but when he loses, he gets pissy and sets off the weapon anyway, and I'm pretty sure he's dead now. I mean, it's a weapon at this point, so I doubt it would make him immortal, you know? Hey Phil, can you take a picture of this gravesite? Thanks, you're a doll. Once the champion is beaten, we get a parade in our honor for saving Kalos, and AZ decides to battle us. With this battle done, he finally feels free from the guilt he brought upon himself over his actions. And then comes probably the most heartwarming and yet heart-wrenching moment in Pokemon history. Fluid. It's been 3,000 years. This is arguably my favorite ending to any Pokemon game that I have ever seen because of how goddamn happy it is. Not to mention AZ gets closure in relation to his lost Pokemon. Granted, I feel like it's a bit rushed in a way, but it's still a very emotional moment that I genuinely love, and a great ending. But what about the postgame? What the hell happened? Okay, so first of all, while I didn't experience it, I found out secondhand just how good and packed with content the post-game for Black 2 and White 2 was, and is arguably considered one of the best post-games, if not the best post-game in Pokemon history. So it is absolutely no wonder that people did not like X and Y, because the post-game is practically barren. You got a post-game narrative that admittedly I still think is very good and I will get to in a bit. You can catch Zygarde, you can catch one legendary bird Pokemon in what is probably a better use of the shitty roaming legendaries mechanic depending on who you ask. Friend Safari, which is so goddamn useless even if you have friends on your 3DS, as the Pokemon linked to each friend is entirely random. A battle with Mewtwo, because why not? Although it's alleged that the Mewtwo was abused by his former trainer, what the fuck? And outside of rebattling at the Battle Mason, or even that Battle Chateau that I didn't get footage of because I was trying to rush through this, oops. That's really it. That is all there is to the post-game. My god, this is lacking. Again, just what the hell happened here? Oh, you can get new Mega Stones as you can get your Mega Ring upgraded. But not only can you only find them between 8 and 9 PM in whatever time zone your 3DS is set to, but they will always be Mega Stones for Pokemon that you cannot get in whatever version you find them in. Yeah, the Houndoom and Aggron I got, like I said earlier, I save modded for them because they cannot be found in Y, but their Mega Stones can be. And mind you, upon further research, I found that only 3 Mega Stones per version have this issue. However, that doesn't make it any less crappy. I get that this was likely done to further encourage trading, but what in God's name do you think was the point of the frickin' Pokedex for the past decade and a half prior to this game's release? But let me just talk about the post-game's narrative a bit because I like talking about story, and also it has Looker, and this guy's pretty neat, even if he is a bit of an idiot claiming that this woman speaking Japanese just wants tea after stating he's been all over the world. Actually, you know what, that makes sense, as there's quite a few entitled white people who visit other countries but then get mad when nobody there speaks English. How have we as a species survived this long? Okay, so specifically speaking, the story is more so about a character named Emma than it is Looker. She is a homeless orphan that Looker takes in as an adoptive daughter of sorts, and while Looker is doing detective work, she feels rather useless as she isn't really contributing anything even as his assistant, so she gets a part-time job with former Team Flare admin Dr. Sarosek, who straight up is experimenting with a super suit with Emma as his guinea pig. This feels even worse knowing that she's 16. Like, no, it actually is confirmed in the game that she is 16. So, even if she were like 12 or 8 or whatever, that's still pretty messed up. Thankfully, Zerosik does have some semblance of a soul, as a big priority of his is to make sure Emma is safe in the suit. Hell, he even gifts her the suit as a thank you for helping him with his research, and willingly turns himself into the police for all the crimes he had Emma commit while she was under his control. Yeah, you know, I have no idea whether this guy is likable or not. He's a very mixed bag. The narrative ends with Looker gone and Emma now running his detective service, helping the city with her suit as Essentia. Holy shit, I've never actually seen this trainer portrait of her. That is so cool. That looks so good. And Emma even comments that having Looker around may have been what having a father is like. Oh my god, I hope we get to see her again. I just want to hug her and tell her everything will be okay. You know? I still had a fun time revisiting this. Well, aside from the burnout/depression anyway. While it's not as good as I remembered it being, they are still very solid Pokemon titles with all things considered. In fact, it's hard to say that there is necessarily a bad mainline Pokemon game, which is interesting to say because, like, it's not saying that there's no such thing as a worse mainline Pokemon game, but even the worst mainline Pokemon game can end up being a good Pokemon game regardless, you know? They've probably introduced the best battle mechanic this series has ever seen. The commentary on capitalism still holds up to this day, and I argue it'll never not hold up with the way things are going. We've had some fun mechanics otherwise with rollerblading and the sort, some stellar music that actually is like, oh my god, the music is actually so damn good, man. I still feel that these games are very good. I just wish we got Pokemon Z, or whatever it would have been at that time. What? Pokemon Z. It's actually real. The Pokemon Z. The Pokemon Z is real! Holy crap, we did it! We finally got Pokemon Z! Kinda! Obviously, it's too soon to tell how it'll play out, but if it's set in the future like people theorize, I'm very hopeful we'll get to see all the cast of characters in this game. Yes, even you, Trevor and Tierno, and all we have to do is wait until 2025, which is 3 years after Legends Arceus, which implies that the game will release in January. God damn it, they really haven't learned anything with the time releases stuff, have they?